Hello everyone, this is Aaron. In this class, we're going to unpack the relevance of the story of Ji Zha gives up his sword to today's society. First of all, I'm going to talk about it from my own perspective as a Chinese person born after 1990. Then my British colleague James is going to cover mostly the same content, but completely in English. This is going to be fantastic English listening practice, so I suggest you listen several times until you get it all. And now, without any further ado, let's begin the class. 孔子曾经说过：“见利思义，见危受命。九夭不忘平生之言，亦可以为成人矣。” If he thinks of righteousness whenever he sees a chance of gain, is ready to sacrifice his life in the face of danger, and lives up to all promises, he can be called a perfect man. 而这个故事就侧重于表达我们中国人的义这样的道德品质。这种道德品质被我们中国人称赞，同时流传，到现在也指导着我们中国人的行为和思想。而这个故事更可贵的一点在于，即使徐国君王已经不在了，但是季札仍然信守自己的诺言，将自己的佩剑放到了徐国君王的墓碑之上。这种对义的追求是超越了生死的，这就让这种美德显得更加伟大。而接下来我们就来看一个跨越生死的案例。2006年1月27日，还有2天就过年了。辽宁本溪燕宝砖厂蓝厂长接到了一个电话：“我是武秀军，我丈夫欠你的3万元钱，你今晚就来取吧。”蓝厂长想婉拒，说道：“不用了，弟妹，过年的对子都贴上了，上你家拿钱啊，对你家不好。”对面的武秀军却说：“他家没有那么多讲究，过来拿就行。”无奈啊，蓝厂长只好来到武秀军家中取钱。在取钱的过程中，还推说让武秀军先给别人，但是武秀军却说已经保证按时还钱，就不能再拖延。就这样，两人推来推去，最后呢，武秀军还是把钱死死地塞进了蓝厂长的手里。1年多以前，蓝厂长就接到过武秀军的电话，问自己的丈夫赵勇是不是还有一笔专款没有和他结清。这让蓝厂长很震惊，赵勇欠他的这笔钱已经好几年了。3年前，因为赵勇车祸去世，他认为这笔钱一定就是一笔死账了没想到赵勇的遗孀武秀军竟然主动表示要偿还这笔钱。而在1年后武秀军真的兑现了自己的诺言。赵勇去世时只有40岁，之前他一直承揽建筑工程，是一名包工头。他与妻子武秀军都十分讲究诚信，在业内一直备受人们的尊重。不幸的是，在2002年，赵勇在前往沈阳购买大理石的路上，因为车祸身亡。处理完丈夫的丧事，武秀军发现丈夫在生前还有未处理完的经济往来，除了欠蓝厂长的钱，这其中还欠银行贷款、农民工工资200余万。许多亲戚得知后都劝武秀军：“现在赵勇已经去世了你一个弱女子欠人家的钱就不要还了但武秀军暗下决心，丈夫一生讲诚信，自己一定要把他欠的钱给还上。她接替丈夫开始管理施工团队，带着团队做外墙粉刷，同时陪着工人们一起干活，为他们做饭，一边挣钱一边还债。到了2006年，仅用了3年的时间，她就还了贷款以及欠款170万。在接受采访时，记者问武秀军累不累，她回答说累，尤其是冬天早上4、5点就要出门，崩溃哭泣受委屈的时刻也数不胜数。但是当问到她有没有想过放弃的时候，武秀军却坚决地回答：没有，从来没想过。
Confucius once said, if he thinks of righteousness whenever he sees a chance of gain, is ready to sacrifice his life in the face of danger, and lives up to old promises, he can be called a perfect man. To this end, this story focuses on expressing the righteousness of Chinese people. This moral principle is praised and encouraged by Chinese people. To this day, it still guides the behavior and mindsets of the people of China. The most valuable lesson to draw from this story is that even though the king of Shu had already passed away, Ji Zha still kept his promise and left the promised sword at his tomb. The fact that his pursuit of righteousness transcended life and death makes this virtue even greater. Now let's look at another case that spans life and death. On January the 27th, 2006, 2 days before Chinese New Year, Mr. Lan, the factory director of Yanbao Brick Factory in Bunxi, Liaoning Province, received a phone call. This is Wu Xiujin speaking. My husband owes you 30,000 yuan. You can come and get it tonight. Mr. Lan declined, saying, no, you've already hung New Year's couplets outside your home, and to take money at this time would bring bad luck to your family. However, she told him that she didn't pay much attention to such things, and that he should still come to collect it. So Mr. Lan had no choice but to come to her house to get the money. When he arrived, he still tried to refuse, telling her to give the money to other people, but she was insistent that the money needed to be paid back and that the matter could not be delayed any longer. They carried on like this, squabbling back and forth, until finally Wu Xiujin forced the money into the hands of the factory director. More than a year previously, Mr. Lan first received a phone call from Wu Xiujin, asking if her husband Zhao Yong still owed him a sum of money. This shocked Mr. Lan, because Zhao Yong had in fact owed him money for several years. In addition, Zhao Yong died in a car accident 3 years prior to this, so Mr. Lan had written off the account. He did not expect that Zhao Yong's widow would offer to repay the money. Yet after a year, she did indeed fulfill this promise. Zhao Yong was only 40 years old when he died. Before that, he had worked in the construction industry as a contractor. He and his wife both paid great attention to integrity and were well respected by the people in the industry. Unfortunately, in 2002, Zhao Yong met his untimely end on his way to Shenyang to buy marble for the company. While making arrangements for her husband's funeral, his wife found out that before he passed away, her husband still had a lot of unsettled financial business. In addition to the money owed to Mr. Lan, he also owed more than 2 million yuan in bank loans and workers' wages. Many relatives advised Wu Xiujin that as her husband had already passed away, that she needn't pay back the money that was owed. However, she was determined that her husband should be honest all his life, and that she would return all the money. She took over from her husband and began to manage the construction team as they worked on the painting of exterior walls. At the same time as assisting the workers, she also cooked for them and was able to save money and pay off the debt. In 2006, in just 3 years, she paid off the loan and 1.7 million in arrears. In an interview, a reporter asked Wu Xiujin whether she was tired. She said that she was, especially in the winter. She would leave the house at 4 or 5 in the morning, and there were countless times when she would break down in tears over the situation. Yet, when asked if she wanted to give up, Wu Xiujin resolutely replied, "No, I never even thought about it."
义是构成我们中国人道德规范的基石之一。其实，在西方许多哲学和道德准则里面，跟义相关的教育也有非常多，比如要讲诚信、对待朋友要真诚等等。而接下来我们要说的故事，就是一个来自美国的关于义的故事。1984年3月底的一天，纽约州杨克斯市有一位警察叫 Robert Cunningham， 他在8年的时间里面一直是一家披萨店的常客。He had been a regular in the pizza restaurant for 8 years。有一天下班，从披萨店用餐结束之后，可能是这一天 Robert 心情也不错，他就想跟店员打个赌，开个玩笑，说今天就不给小费了。他口袋里有一张lottery ticket 彩票啊，咱们每个人选3个号码，如果赢了的话，奖金就分给店员1半当做小费。店员跟这个 Robert 也是老熟人了哈，于是2个人就半开玩笑似的完成了这个彩票号码的填写。4月1日一大早，这个店员家的电话就响了起来，电话那头的 Robert 兴奋地跟他说，那张彩票赢了600万美元的奖金，跟他平分来了啊。 这个店员当时睡得正香啊，一想还是愚人节，刚开始还以为 Robert 这是开玩笑啊。Robert 费了好半天的劲儿，才让店员相信这一切都是真的。这两个朴实的家庭在中大奖之后，却依然用一种 modest 的方式来生活。除了在养老和子女教育方面有一定妥善分配外，两人也依旧选择继续自己的工作。Robert 在中奖后第一时间跟警局担保，他依然会工作到退休。这个中奖的消息很快在全美就出名了，人们不仅惊讶于两个人中大奖的这种幸运，还觉得 Robert 这种诚实慷慨的行为是十分值得赞扬的。纽约时报 （New York Times）、时代周刊 （Times Magazine） 都对这个事件进行了报道。在采访中Robert 表示 ：“I've been a simple person all my life. I hope money never changes me.” 我一生都是个实诚人，我希望金钱永远不会改变我。在1994年，这个故事还被拍成了电影《倾城佳话》（It Could Happen to You）。在里面扮演这个警察的演员呢是鲜肉时期的 Nicolas Cage 尼古拉斯凯奇。如果说武秀君和季札的故事是超越了生死去实现对义的追求的话，那么美国警察 Robert 就是克服了贪婪。他没有独吞大奖，而是选择兑现承诺。这个行为不就是典型的见利思义吗？说明义这种精神介绍给外国人也同样会打动他们。这是一种共性的伟大人格和品质的体现。
Righteousness is one of the cornerstones of Chinese moral standards. But it is important to note that in Western philosophy, there are also many teachings related to righteousness, including characteristics such as honesty, sincerity towards friends, etc. The next story we're going to tell is a story about righteousness from the United States. There was a policeman named Robert Cunningham in Yonkers City in New York State. He had been a regular in a pizza restaurant for 8 years. One day at the end of March 1984, he said that he would not give a tip at the end of his meal. He had a lottery ticket in his pocket and told the server that they should each choose 3 numbers. If he was to win, he would give half of the winnings as a tip. The server and Robert were old acquaintances, so they half-jokingly selected the lottery numbers together. Early in the morning of April the 1st, the phone rang at the waitress's house. On the other end of the phone, Robert excitedly told her that they had hit the jackpot and that he would share the $6 million equally with her. Before the phone call, she had been sleeping soundly and at first thought Robert was joking. Was it April Fool's Day? It took Robert a long time to convince her that what he said was true. Even after such a huge windfall, both of these two normal families continued to live in a modest way. After making provisions for their pensions and children's education, they still chose to continue working. Robert gave assurances to the police that he would still work up until retirement age. The news of their winnings spread quickly throughout the United States. People were not only surprised by their extreme good fortune, but also felt that Robert's honest and generous behaviour was highly commendable. Robert once said in an interview, "I've been a simple person all my life. I hope money never changes me." In 1994, the story was adapted for the big screen in the film It Could Have Happened to You, in which the then budding actor Nicolas Cage starred as the honest policeman. If the story of Wu Xiujun and Ji Zha overcame life and death to realize the pursuit of righteousness, then Robert the American police officer overcame worldly greed. Instead of keeping the money for himself, he chose to fulfill his promise. This is a great example of the Chinese idiom, "Remember what is right at the sight of profit." It shows that the spirit of righteousness can be found all over the world and that everyone can be moved by it. These stories can embody a desirable common human personality trait.